Alrighty, guys, welcome to this month's MSPs in Conversation. We're going to be talking around the power of customer retention and growing your business through your existing customer base today and the importance of it. So, as always, this session is recorded, so we cut this up into a podcast. It is available on YouTube, Vimeo, and a whole bunch of things. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will answer them as we go. And a big thank you to our guests. I will get you, or our guest panelists, I will get you guys to introduce yourself in just a moment. Very quickly, and we're not here to talk about Hosted Network, but a free plug while I can. Hosted Network, if you don't know, we are a wholesale cloud and telco provider for Australian MSPs. We started off as a managed service provider a long time ago, and for the last 12 years, we have been 100% wholesale, dedicated solely to managed service providers. Our value prop to you guys is that we help you be an MSP, not a telco, and that, quite frankly, we like to get shit done. And as an organization, we are an entirely feedback-driven. Everything that we've done, our portal, all of our processes, the people that we hire are basically feedback-driven. So if you'd like to learn more or if you'd like to talk, please feel free to reach out after the webinar or the recording. Anyway, that's enough about us. Panelists, welcome. So we have the triple A's today. There you go. I had to make that joke. We'll hear that a few times, I'm sure. Two Andrews, Mr. Hunt and Mr. Page, and Mr. Smith. There's a bit of a matrix. I make that enough. I'm sure you hear it all the time. Welcome and thank you for joining us and sharing your insights today. Could I get you guys to do a quick introduction of each of yourselves? Mr. Hunt, I will start with you.
Hey, thanks, Ben. It's absolutely fantastic to be here. I'm Andrew, one of the Andrews on the call, obviously. I run an MSP in Auckland called Kinetics. I've been doing that for almost 30 years. And out of the back of that MSP business, we realized we needed to know our customers better so that we could do exactly what this webinar is all about, which is to build our retention and make sure that we were doing the best job for our clients to build a value prop. And so we built a tool to do that, which is called Get Cambium. And it's entirely Aaron's fault because he heard we were doing it internally and he said, hey, that's fantastic. Could you share that with the MSP market? And so we did, and we're here today, and I blame Aaron.
Yeah.
We blame Aaron for a lot of things, so that's okay.
And to be fair, it's fair to do so.
And Mr. Page, welcome.
Excellent. G'day. So I'm the other Andrew. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Ben. It's great to be back. I really enjoy these things. I'm CEO of Y365, and we're a small MSP based in Melbourne that specialises in building bespoke solutions on top of the Microsoft 365 platform. So our solutions are all about our customers and how they do business, and we're really building bespoke solutions. So it fits really nicely with the topic today because you can't build a bespoke solution for a customer unless you really understand what they do and how they operate.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, Mr. Smith.
Hi. I thought I'd get away from all the stock standard titles and call myself something fancy. So I Googled and came up with the creative opportunities, which is effectively a creative way of saying I find opportunities for the people I work with, and away we go. I started Profitability out of an MSP. I worked for a company called Correct Solutions for the better part of almost 10 years. We got acquired on the way through that journey. And most of my focus has been on the growth of internal accounts. We did a number of acquisitions, and if you are not engaging with the accounts that you bring on and making sure that they bed down properly and you start to get to know those businesses intimately and understand how they tick, how they work, ultimately, you lose them. So for me, this topic is near and dear to heart. It's one of the first things that I talk about when we walk into brand new clients and start engaging with them. But yeah, in a nutshell, Profitability goes in and builds sales teams inside managed services that are trying to get out of that owner-led piece. And that's where I come in and I start pulling out structure, process, client engagement, and away we go.
Cool. Well, thank you, guys. I look forward to all of your insights today. I've got my trusty, remarkable digital pen and paper in front of me, so I'm going to be taking lots of notes. Like I said, guys, to the audience, feel free to drop in as many questions as you'd like. We will try and answer them as we go. But with that, let us kick off. So I will stop sharing and let's jump into it. So my first question, and Andrew Hunt, I'm Mr. Hunt. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to direct this to you first of all. I know this is going to be a bit trying by the end of it, but anyway, bear with me. What in your mind as an MSP, but also someone that has built a product, to drive customer retention, what does good customer retention look like in your mind?
I think it's really hard to win new clients and really easy to lose clients, and we know how expensive it is winning a new customer. So you've got to really value the ones you've got and make sure that you're doing something for them that they really appreciate. And one of the things we know, and particularly we know this when we start selling, in our case, our software to MSPs, is you're selling it on the internet and you have a look at various MSPs' websites, and you realize that most MSPs kind of have websites that say roughly the same thing. Fixed fee, we look after your cybersecurity, come on site, do these things, give you reports, and so forth. And it's fairly commoditized. But our customers' experience is not. Our customers' experience is as they see us, and we've got to make sure they have an experience that's absolutely fantastic, and that reflects that we really understand the customer. We've got to build trust with our client, that they can rely on us to do the job that they need so that they use us more. So good customer retention really, to my mind, is customers that trust their MSP to understand them, to do the right thing, and to build value for both the customer and the MSP.
Brilliant. Mr. Page, as an MSP that goes from a boutique approach, what does good look like with your customers?
Look, I think good comes down to all about building relationships. Ultimately, everything that we do in business is about relationships, whether it be relationships with our suppliers or relationships with our customers, or relationships internally with our own staff and our own team. So everything comes back to building that relationship. And I think that's what good looks like from our perspective, and making sure that we're fostering those relationships and really getting in deep and understanding what a customer does, how they do it, and what their pain points are. And, to sort of step back into the boutique sort of solutions dev space, what we specialize in is making solutions that fit the customer's specific needs. I think there's a whole lot of off-the-shelf products now that can, manage particular processes in particular ways, but not every business owner wants to operate in the same way. And quite often, business owners or decision makers within businesses want to operate in a specific way for some very specific reason. And the only way to really build a solution appropriate or specific to them is to get in and understand the whys and the hows and the, where are the improvement areas for improvement, all of that kind of stuff. And ultimately, all that comes back to that relationship. If you've got a great relationship, you can leverage that to sort of develop that understanding and really get in deep with that, business.
Cool. Aaron, Mr.
Yeah.
Smith. I love that. I just want to call you Mr. Smith now on. From your sales perspective,
Yeah.
what does good customer retention look like?
I think there's an understanding when you're engaging with customers, and part of one of the first things I do is understanding where to focus your attention more so than anything else, because not all customers are good customers, and not all customers want you to engage with them in the way that you want to engage with them. And taking the time to actually make sure that you are digging initially to make sure that you're the right fit for each other. That's the start of that thread pull in terms of building that initial relationship, and taking more time at the start to really understand what makes them tick, make sure you're aligned, make sure that your services and offerings, and contrary a little bit to what Mr. Page is talking about, in the sense that the opportunity for Mr. Page's business is to go and create that. The opportunity for most MSPs is to standardize to what they've already got, and phenomenal differentiation, mate. I'm supportive of it. But for me, it's talking to those people and actually understanding what makes them tick, find out the cadence with which they want to be engaged with. And then your job is to remain in touch enough, provide them with enough smart ideas, enough tree shaking of things they can think about, that they then start to work with you when they come up with their own harebrained ideas, and you are the first person they think about rather than someone else.
Okay, so no one's mentioned pipeline at the moment, and that's a word I was expecting out of you. But that's good. So okay, so what we're talking about is going deeper with your customers so that you can be more aligned to them. Can you do that with all of your customers?
I think the challenge there, Ben, and you put a challenge out there to use the word pipeline. So I'm gonna rise to the challenge.
Please.
But it shouldn't be where you start. The challenge, firstly, and I really agree with the comments, you've got to understand the client. It's easy to sell something to somebody who wants to buy it. And so if you are understanding what your customers' needs are, then you can position your solution in a way that relates to them. Now, they might use the wrong words, so use it from their point of view. And if you can go in there and talk to them about their business, and you can understand what they need, they're going to tell you the problems that they've got. They're going to tell you their opportunities to grow their business, the costs they're trying to control, the risks they're trying to mitigate. And each one of those is an opportunity for the MSP to go back to that customer and add value. And that might be through a 365 solution. It might be through something in Azure. It might be through Forms or Power Automate or some other tools that Andrew's talking about. But you can't offer that until you understand them. And each one of those opportunities is an opportunity that goes into your pipeline that you can sell to them. The idea is to understand the customer. This is the problem you've got. You want to solve it. Here's where it sits in your priorities. Is it Q1, Q2, Q3 of this year? And let's go and put those opportunities in against the customer's time frame to solve the customer's needs. And the challenge is as MSPs, and I've been around this industry for almost 30 years now, is I've noticed that most of us, and I started off this way myself, we're technical. We see a thing and we go, you know what, that's the old model. There's a newer model which has got better this, that, or the other. And we want to go and help them have the best IT they can have. The problem is the customer doesn't want the best IT. They want the right IT for their needs. They actually don't like spending money on IT. The only time somebody wants to spend money on IT is if it's the latest Apple thing and they've got to have it. And that's really kind of a fashion sale. Most of our customers don't like spending money on IT. They'd rather spend it on other things that they've got to do. So our opportunity is to understand the business problem that they've got and then to present our solutions to them in a way that makes sense to them. And we've got to help technical folk, our sales team that want to sell stuff in a box, stuff that they understand, to not look at it from our technical point of view, but to look at it from the customer's perspective, and to ask the customer the right questions, uncover their needs, and streamline your proposal against their business priorities. That's going to generate your pipeline, and you're going to say to the customer, because you've got this pain, I've got this painkiller. When you want to solve it, great. September, fantastic. In September, here's the proposal. Let's do this together. Let's add value. And that creates trust with your client. That's what reduces churn. And that's what helps your customer to refer you to their friends and their network, because they know that you've taken the time to understand them. And as I say, the challenges for MSPs, that tends to be a fairly unnatural thing to have that conversation. We're not wired that way. We need help. We need coaching and we need tools to help us have a human business conversation rather than a conversation about technology.
Sounds like you're talking about Get Cambium, Andrew.
Well, I'm actually talking about my business. Well, as it happens, Aaron, yes, but I'm actually also talking about my business. And it came from an epiphany. I was out talking to a client, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. I had this epiphany. And they said to me, we've just lost a sales rep and they've taken all of our precedent library with us. What are you going to do about it? And I sat there thinking, why is this my problem? You never told me that you needed that. I never realized you had stuff that I sound so naive now, but I'd never asked them the right question to understand their IP that they wanted to protect. And so it was my fault that they didn't have a tool to protect them from that because I'd never asked. And at that point, we had the realization that we had a duty as their trusted IT advisor to ask them the questions to uncover what they valued and present that solution. And so that's how we started to build out our process that became Cambium. And we wanted to ask that consistently across all of our clients, all of our sales team, asking those questions so that we could do it to the most clients we could and add that value.
I think, I'm going to pick that one up if I can.
Yeah, please.
I think there's an assumption that gets made that salespeople all know what they're doing and should just be able to sit in front of people. And that goes for business owners because unfortunately they walk in front of relationships and go, I'm the smartest guy in the room. You need to listen to me. But in terms of actually taking that time, yes, tactical speeds and feeds, by all means, you can sell a server till the cows come home. But as we're seeing now, servers have disappeared. The hardware sales that used to be there in the past don't exist to the same volume. So you've got to be able to have a different conversation with people. And this is where I sit there and I go, there's got to be a system by which you can follow and have a consistent conversation with a person at a personal level. And to Andrew's point, if I sit there and I build a relationship with people, I open doors, I understand that they have a couple of kids who play soccer and football and do all the things, and I take those notes in and I have that data there. I build a personal relationship with people over the course of time. The trust builds, and if I ask the right questions that shake the right trees, I don't have to build a pipeline. It'll build for me because there'll be trust along the way. I've asked the right questions. They all tie in to an offer that we have, but those questions all relate to something that we can use to help them out. And the most important thing is if you stop selling your own services and start helping people, you will sell far more of your own services as a result of that, because your job as the position of power you're in is to connect the right people to the right people.
It's also more satisfying, Aaron. I mean, you're dead right. It's also actually just professionally more satisfying to help somebody. And I bet that's what Andrew Page finds as well. I suspect, you get quite a buzz, don't you, when you go into a customer and you see a problem that you've solved for them, and your work's making a difference, helping them be more profitable, to process a transaction faster.
It's a very rewarding, self-fulfilling piece of it, isn't it, when you're actually solving a problem? So I'm going to throw you another challenge. We talked pipeline from a sales perspective, and I think that's a really good foundational piece of it. We've got a wide range of audience on the call, right? We've talked about sales teams already. What happens if you're an owner-led organization, right? And you're in firefighting mode? And this is where but my question earlier was, should you be going deep with all of your customers? Right. So I'm going to go back to that question. And then for the owner-led, the smaller organizations on the call, how do we actually go in there? So, Mr. Page, I'm going to throw that one to you. Do you I mean, you run a boutique organization, so maybe you've got a different perspective. But would you recommend that you go deep with all of your customers?
Look, I think like anything, it's a matter of context, and it's a matter of, like Aaron said, I think it's a matter of identifying what does that customer actually want and need from your business. So when you're selling to a particular customer, you've got to make sure that you're able to meet their needs and their requirements. And some customers are quite hands-off, and all they want to do is tick a box and say, yes, I've got XYZ technology implemented. We don't really need to talk too much further than that. I don't want to spend money. And in some cases, that's okay. It's often not the recommended path. But, if that's what the customer wants, it's going to be a little bit difficult to change their mind sometimes. But I think where possible, yes, absolutely, you should try and understand and build a relationship. I think to sort of pivot a little bit to the owner-led, sort of discussion, because it ties in nicely. I think building those relationships is often can be a matter of personality as well. So there's obviously the tech side of things that we're selling, and we've got all this sort of technical skill, but being able to communicate that sort of technology with different people sometimes requires different communication styles, different communication skill sets. And so from an owner-led perspective, I know in my team, one thing that I like to encourage is for specific members of staff to have specific interactions with compatible customers, let's say, and have the team build their own relationships with those customers. It's so important for scalability, and it's also really important for the customer, because I know that my communication style may not work for every single customer, and certain members of my team may not work for every single customer, but there are really nice synergies between different members of the team and different customers within that customer base. So yes, I think you should absolutely try and build relationships with every customer where you can. It's not always going to be possible. And again, to come back to Aaron's point, I think asking the right questions is just so critical, and that's going to really streamline that process, because you should be able to work out fairly quickly whether or not a customer really wants that constant proactive outreach, lots of hand holding, lots of contact, or they just want you to sit in the background and wait for them to reach out to you for assistance.
We used to ask the question, how often do you actually want to hear from us? And then we built an account management program around that. And that was centered more around ensuring that there was, for me, it's 3 different types of touch. I use Get Cambium for the annual big planning pieces that give us a roadmap to work towards. But then you've got strategic business reviews, which are either quarterly, half yearly, or annually, depending on the frequency of which people want to engage. And then you've got your more tactical, which is speeds and feeds, because people still want to know that the work is getting done and that they are ticking boxes. And account management's ultimately responsible for that. And you need a good balance of all 3 of those consistently, and consistently looks different for different clients. And the engagement piece is there as a result. The bit that I think most people realize, answering your question more directly, Ben, is if you look at most MSPs, 80% of the revenue comes from the top 20% of the clients.
I think it's quite nuanced, and it's tempting with these things to ask a yes/no question. Should I put my foot there or there? And there's a question that's come up in the Q&A as well, which is what's the right balance? So the short answer is that most of your customers come to you through referral. We sit there and we market and we sell and we cold call, but ultimately most of our new business comes through referral. And referral is a measure of trust. You're not going to refer somebody unless you trust them. So you've got to have that trust. I like what Andrew said, that you want to try and have that connection with as many customers as you can. It's not that, Aaron's right. The top 10% are 80% of your customers, 80% of your revenue. But you want to have a strong, in-depth conversation with as many clients as you possibly can, because your referrals come from across your client base. And then in terms of your connectivity with your clients, it's not, there are some regular formal touch points like the annual budgeting process and the QBR. But actually, customers have their speed of wanting to engage varies depending upon what's going on in their lives, their business, and their projects. If they've got some big things going on, they want to see more of you. If it's business as usual, they're going to want to see less of you. And if you're having, some of those meetings have different folk in them as well, and there's different tiered connections to have. If you go in to see a customer and you meet the CEO and you talk about tickets and the age of machines that are coming out of warranty and how well the backups went last month, you're not going to get another meeting with that CEO. They literally, into what Aaron just did, fall over and fall slightly asleep. They don't want to know. But if you go into that customer and you say, I understand that you're trying to open up a new factory, a new warehouse, and we need to get in there and get these things done for you. What's the time frame? Have you got the planning permission? Whatever. If you're going to talk about their business, if you're going to talk about the things they care about, then they're going to happily meet with you. If they're going to say, the board's told me I've got to get cyber insurance, and I'm really concerned that we've got these gaps. You can then say, well, we're promoting cybersecurity to you, actually, not just to protect your business, it's going to do that, but also specifically because you've got to meet a regulatory requirement or a compliance requirement of that cyber insurer, and we're going to help you tick that box. Because that's going to help you reduce your cost of insurance or do these other things. Then you're talking the customer's language. So you don't know what the customer cares about until you've unpacked it. And as an owner, some of those conversations come naturally. The minute you try and get some of your team to do it, they struggle with it because, again, they're not wired that way. They don't have that authority of ownership to be able to have that conversation naturally. So again, as MSPs, the good news is we love tools, so we can get tools to help us do that.
Yeah, to I guess cement home Andrew's point also, your customer is actually multiple relationships. One of the biggest benefits of being in an MSP business is that you have multiple touch points. Ben, as a hosted networks, as an example, is actually the opposite. Coming out of a telco background myself 12 to 15 years ago, I had one contact inside that business, and that was generally the lead tech, IT manager, whoever it happened to be for that sort of a service. And so our ability as MSPs to know the head of the office manager, the CEO, the CFO, because all of our people touch all of the people, we've got a way better touch. And the customer is not just the decision maker. The customer is putting the right people in at the right levels for the right relationships, who know how to have the right conversations with the right people. CEO level conversations, to Andrew's point, are markedly different to an IT manager conversation, which is they're much more interested in the speeds and feeds. They want the tactical stuff. The CEO's already asleep in the back garden because he's already gone back. He's put himself in a hammock. But that for me is just knowing where you have to focus your attention on those customers, and away you go from there. Alistair, your question just in the Q&A, I'll answer it a little bit more directly. When you are in a growth phase, your natural focus is on acquisition, but at some point in time, you run out of capacity. And at that point, the balancing act between net new business and growth and retention shifts. Because in this industry, if you go and land 4 or 5 new customers in a month, by service desk, they are going to drown.
And projects team,
You've got
everyone else.
projects team on the way through. So there's a balancing act there between new business generation and hunting out of the, the best line I've heard is hunting on the game preserve. Because if you go hunting on the game preserve, you'll probably bag something if you've got the right attention. And Nate Austin, you can take that one. There you go. You're welcome. That's realistically the balance shift that does happen all the time. When you are overstretching one side of the business, you need to make sure you've got both done in the right balance, because you cannot drown your service desk because you'll lose people out the back door.
to amplify Aaron's point as well, I think if you're talking to a customer, you're only meeting some of their needs because you haven't seen through what they need. And you're only meeting some of the needs, then you're going to ring somebody else up. So to a point Ben made earlier on, years ago, we were installing Novell networks, Microsoft small business servers. Today, all of that's gone. We used to replace service for customers every 3 to 5 years when the warranty ran out, they want a new one. All of that business is gone. Today, we're helping customers to implement much more complex cloud-based solutions. Our customers are more reliant on IT today than they've been in any point in history, but they have less physical IT. They have solutions like the ones that Andrew Page is talking about in 365. They're building solutions using Copilot or other AI tools. They're using RPA kind of solutions. They're more reliant on technology to work more regularly, more reliably from wherever they happen to be on a wider range of devices than ever before. And as their trusted IT advisor, our job is to make sure we understand what they need to make it work. And what the Get Cambium customers are telling us is that when they understand that information, when they've understood what they want, they're going to get more recommendations from clients to go and work with their colleagues. That's the experience of Yorb. I know that's one of your clients, Aaron, in Palmerston North, or up in Brisbane at Grassroots, so that we're helping them to understand what their customers need, how they're using technology so they can win more business from their current customers.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to pivot a little bit. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of an owner-led organization, right? They've got, I want to go back to those because I know that we've got a few of those on the call today. Let's talk a little bit about tactics, right? We need to, how often, Aaron, you touched earlier, right? How often you should meet the customer. We've got this term of QBR, right? And I'm surprised no one's mentioned it yet. And I want one of you to destroy it, please, feel free. But in terms of, the industry sort of talked around, cool, you do QBRs, right? And I know a lot of MSPs just try and work towards that as like their standard. I assume you feel otherwise. Mr. Page, how often do you think is a good baseline for your customers?
I think much like Aaron sort of highlighted earlier, it really depends on that customer. How often do they want to hear from us? For some customers with lots of complex infrastructure needs that are looking for a little bit more hand-holding, it could be weekly, even bi-weekly, where you're doing those regular catch-ups and those touch points, and then punctuated with the QBRs or an annual or a half-yearly sort of more strategic catch-up and review. Those touch points really vary depending on the customer. And then on the flip side of the fence, you might just have an annual sort of meeting, to discuss the next year's trajectory, and that's all they want. And then they want you to go back into your corner, and we deal with just the IT guys from, within the customer moving forward to deliver those projects. So it really does depend on the specific customer's needs. And I also liked sort of Aaron's response to the question in the chat around sort of those growth phases. And it's important to remember that, or the different business phases, sorry. It's important to remember that the customers' businesses are also going through those similar phases. So there might be a phase where they are just focusing on stability. They want to maintain their current customer base, and they want to prepare for growth, and they want to really bed down all of their systems. And so in that case, they might be wanting to just look at shoring up most of their systems, and they're wanting some, less large projects, more just, check-ins to make sure everything is going smoothly, and let's find our weak points. And then you might go through a growth phase and realize that we need to change all of our systems. We need to make sure we're up to date with all of these things. We need to improve efficiency, all of those kind of things. So the customers' businesses are going through those phases, and being cognizant and aware of where they are at within those phases is really important. And that may change the cadence of when you're touching base with your customers and how often.
Okay, so, and again, someone feel free to take a flamethrower for the term QBR. Is QBR black and white? QBR is not enough, typically. It depends on the customer. So I want to give everyone permission in the audience to sort of to meet with the customer as often as needed in that sense. I know there's a lot of MSPs that sort of feel like that's, it could be annual, it could be. And I think that's a really valid point.
We renamed it.
I think one...
They are SBRs, strategic business reviews, where you're connecting the dots between that annual planning, the bigger picture, the roadmap view, and the tactical pieces, and those three must link together. The only reason we remove the word quarterly is because some of those happen half yearly, some of those might happen bi-monthly, some of those might happen annually. It really does depend on the body of work that needs to go on with that particular client and what their engagement desires are with you. But you still need to be having, and this is the bit that I hate about, and I'm going to gently publicly shame it, but there is another model out of a mob who I'm not even going to talk about, but there's another model there that prescribes far more tactical operational focus where you go speeds and feeds on a quarterly basis, and that's really where you center everything. And holy shit, stop it. The first 45 minutes of my strategic business review are, how's your business going? What's working? What's changing? What's adjusting? I'm not talking about speeds and feeds at all. Do you know where the speeds and feeds are? At the bottom of the thing in what's called bedtime reading. Because I've had the wider conversation with you. I know where your business is at. I'm bringing and highlighting for you the bits that I need you to be aware of. And I'm telling you what's happening in the world around us because we're generally connected to it better than you are. And I want to be having a bi-directional conversation that is about your business, our business, and how that all hangs together.
Just to amplify that point, the customers' businesses are changing and their staff are changing. And so it's really important. You should have your standard. And I would argue your standard is to do an annual business review with the customer to relay out their budget. And your budget's probably going to be over a space of 24 or 36 months because the customer say, roughly, these are my plans. But every year that comes by, they review that. And the stuff they thought they were going to do in the year, say 2025, will change a bit because their needs and circumstances have changed. They're being nimble, agile, and responding to circumstance. So we start off as a default, my MSP, I want to have an annual review with the clients. Now, it might not happen annually. It might be that the customer defers this. They very rarely bring it earlier. They quite often defer it, but let's start somewhere and say, let's try and get it done in a year. Let's try and get those QBRs done every quarter. Now, it might stretch out. It might be you only get 3 of them done or 2 of them done, but let's have our standard and try and do it. What tends to happen is you go, oh, I won't make the call this week. I'll make it next week. And next week comes along, you go, I won't make the call this week. I'll make it next week. And all of a sudden, a month, 2 months, 3 months has gone by and you haven't done it. So have your standard and try and get them done. Because if you're not talking to your customer, somebody else is. And if you're not talking about the stuff they care about and somebody else is, that's not going to go terribly well for you. And you're not going to build that trust. So you've got to have a conversation. But the clue to QBR is in the name. Quarterly business review. It's not quarterly technology review. If you're going into Aaron's point, talking about speeds and feeds and tickets and backups and updates and patching and so forth, the customer assumes you do that. When I turn on the light switch at home, the light goes on or off. Every 3 months, the power company doesn't come around and go, look, aren't we good? Every time you turn on and off the light switch, it works. That's not a conversation that occurs. And if it did, I would lose the will to live. When I'm talking to a customer at their business, they care about how did I make them more successful? How do I solve their pain? Did I understand their problems? And did I bring a solution to meet them? I've got to ask the questions they need. I've got to make recommendations that address those needs in their language, in their term, in their time frame, to their budget. Back in the day, we used to call that qualification, sales qualification, because it's essentially what we're doing. And then I'm going to focus my efforts on the things that they want, that they need. If I do that, I will sell trust. I will build a stronger relationship. When the people on that customer move to new roles, they will take me with them. When their mates say, who's good at IT, who can I rely on? They're going to refer me to them. If I've got documentation in that customer, if I have got streamlined reports and proposals based around what they've asked, when a new person comes into that business and says, why haven't you done these things? We can go, yes, actually, we have recommended those to you and you chose to do them or not do them, but we empowered you to make those choices. And the good news is that none of this is new. We've been doing this in our MSP for almost 30 years. And what we didn't get Cambia, and I'm going to keep pitching my solution because actually I'm in sales. And I know MSPs have a problem that they really struggle to have business conversations. So we stuck our business conversations in the pack. So you don't even have to make them up. If you're not sure what to ask them, you can use our library. If you want to add your own, go for gold and do that. But you can be doing sales out of the box, having business conversations, even if it's something that you, as an owner, as a technical person, find uncomfortable or struggle with. We can give you a tool to make that business conversation easy. So now you know why you need that 365 solution. Now you know why you need to have a more robust telco solution that you can buy, obviously, from Ben. Now you know why you need to go and buy a Microsoft Defender license or whatever else, because you've explained it to the customer in their words, in their reference point, so they want to buy it.
The other benefit, I think, to Andrew's point there is that if you are having, and I will suggest this, stop reinventing the wheel. Stop reinventing the wheel. Stop reinventing the wheel. There's enough tools and systems out there that have already got here. Stop reinventing the wheel. The final piece that I'll offer is the one benefit of asking the questions of your clients and hearing what they're actually saying to you. You have an opportunity to ask, how important is this to you? And when they go, well, my world is burning down because it's not being done, amazing. That is a must-do item. We have to do that this quarter. I'm putting it on the top of the priority list. If they're like, whatever, we'll get there, then deprioritize that thing. But make sure that list of stuff you've uncovered is presented to them at every strategic review you have with them. Because what of this list are we doing next? You tell me which are the top 3 priorities and I'll put them on the focus list. This is the big list. This is the focus list. This is where we're going next. That's
dead right, Aaron. And it's really cool when the business management changes as new people come through or someone asks awkward questions for you to be able to go back and say, this is the stuff that you chose to prioritize. That's why we put our effort there. But the key thing you're doing when you do that is you're not opening the door for your competitor to come in.
You're right, Andrew. I was recently talking to one of our MSP partners, and they had a long-term client who they thought they were great with, right? And they're foundational from what I understand. But Dell knocked on their door for free and said to the board, "We'll do a technology review." And the MSPs, the owner, his face went white, basically. And so you've got these larger organizations sort of just going around, and in the end, that MSP didn't even realize that was something that would be open to. So I often say there's 2 types of conversations when you're having with an end customer. If you're going to have a board-led conversation versus, a smaller business, I take this back to where I was sort of trying to direct the conversation earlier. If we look at our customer list, there's only so many hours in a day. Who do we prioritize to have these conversations? Because these are big conversations. We've got to start somewhere. We've got to put a stake in the ground. What are the types of customers that we should be having these initial conversations? Because I want the people on the call today to be able to go, oh, I know that customer. This is where I'm going to start. Otherwise, it's just, we've just given them another year's worth of work. What does that look like?
I like what you said there. We had a customer up in Queensland using Get Cambium who said before they had it, they thought they knew the customer really well. They went in there and went through these questions. Aaron, you know who I'm talking about? I'm going to name and shame. They used these questions and suddenly they realized there was a whole bunch more to that customer that they didn't know. Yep. And they were able to reinforce and build that relationship. I do like the point Ben makes, which is, which of these clients really start? What's the stake in the ground? And I'm sort of curious to know where Aaron and Andrew start with that.
Yeah, Mr. Page.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other 2 have been hogging the microphone, so I'm going to throw it to you.
That's all right. So I think in terms of where to start, I suppose at a business level, it all comes back down to who is your ideal customer? Who is the customer that you're really targeting in your business? And which of your current customer base best fits that profile? And I think that's the starting point. And it's not necessarily always, the customer with the most revenue or the customer with the most staff or the most licenses or anything like that. It's the customer that, particularly if you're starting these types of conversations, which customer is going to respond best to that? And, which one do you have the relationship with? Whereas, conducive to that kind of discussion, higher level discussion around what are their strategic objectives? What are they looking to do over the course of the next whatever period? Those kind of things. I think that's sort of your starting point, and then work backwards from there down the customer list, based on that ideal customer profile.
I think to support that a little bit, 100%. We used to wash people with 3 lenses. One was a pain to profit lens, because ultimately we're talking existing customers. If you
are just call it the dickhead tax,
it is dickhead. And they were the upwards or outwards customers. You're either high pain, but you're making us good money, so we'll take the pain. And we scored you on that lens. We also scored you on your propensity to work with us across our stack. And then the final piece was your actual operational maturity itself. There's a couple of different lenses to that. But to Andrew's point, if you've got 80% of your revenue coming out of your top 20%, you need to defend them first. And only a handful of those will be ready for the conversation you're having. So you've got to check the maturity on the way through. And all I would suggest out of this is if all you do is pick the top 5 and you start there, just do that. Get your systems right with your top 5 that are going to work with you. The ones that will give you good feedback and the ones that will give you the ability to fine tune what a good process looks like in yours and their lens, so that you can then rinse and repeat across the rest in appropriate priority. You don't have enough time in the day. I get that, we used to joke about fuzzy male boss had 48 hours in every 24. I don't get how most of your MSP owners manage to make it work. It's not a skill I possess, but you've only got so much time. And at some point in time, if you can get those revenues up, you can find support structures and staff to take over those conversations so that they do the run rate work and you just get rolled out for the smart conversations. You can roll in for the strategic business reviews and do the whole rockstar thing, and they take all your notes, they do the running around, they do the chasing up, they do the ticket creating, and you get back in your Porsche and you keep on driving. That's the idea, is it not? That at some point in time, you can free yourself up as you grow that business, as you then become the leader that you want to be, unless you're on the tools and you like being on the tools, in which case go and hide in a corner cupboard. Don't care. Wherever that role is for you, find the support structures, and you've got to find the revenue to enable you to achieve that.
God, that sounds like a good sound starting point. So I want to now jump back to a question that we had in the chat earlier. I think it was from Alistair. Thank you. Around the customer acquisition versus customer retention, right? Where we're giving a lot of advice today. There's only so many hours in the day, unless you're fuzzy, where you've got 48 hours. What sort of balance? How do you balance that? But what sort of split do you make between them? Because a lot of the messaging in market for MSPs is like sales. It's all around new customer, how to close, right? So I'm not directing that to you at all, Aaron, by the way. But
I'm the opposite, mate. I actually believe that until you've taken care of your own backyard, until you've got the systems and structures in play, you can go and land all the business you like. You're just going to lose it out the back because you're not ready for the growth.
Cool. So this is if you don't have a sales engine, would you start with customer retention and focusing on existing customers first?
Every day.
I think you need to know what you want to look like in a couple of years' time.
Yep.
And so if you sit there and you say, look, actually, I want to have a whole ton of clients that I just do a little bit of work for, then that's one answer. If you say, I want to have a smaller number of customers that I understand deeply, then that's a different one. And, if you look at your client base, particularly when you're starting out, before you have that sales engine, you tend to sort of have anyone who'll come to you as a client. And as you get a bit big, you get a bit fussier. And in my MSP, one of our criteria is that we want a customer that values IT. If they just see IT as a cost, doesn't matter how big they are. If they just see it as a cost, then everything's going to be a price decision. We can't add much value. So if we unpack that conversation and we can't see a way that we can add value, then actually we're going to lose that client eventually to somebody else who just comes and offers a cheaper price. It's not worth our while to invest effort in that relationship. If we find a customer, it doesn't matter how big they are, but a customer that says, actually, I really value IT. I understand this can make a difference to my business. I can automate that process. I can make that activity happen quicker. I can reduce the risk in processing these things over here, or I can expand my market over there, and I can use technology to do those. Then that's a place where, as an MSP, you're going to thrive and succeed, and you don't need that many of those customers to keep yourself busy. So I think it's really, the answer to the question is really a point of view saying, what do I want my business to look like in 12 or 24 months' time? Where am I now? And what are the changes I need to make? And so what I'd be tending to do is figure out which of my client base were the ones that I just don't see taking that journey with us. Which are the ones where I think I can do more for? And I would look at the ones I can do more for, because it's easier to work with a customer you've already got a relationship with. So again, ask the right questions, find out why they need to do those things that we've got on the screen behind me, and then for where you've got the gap and you say, I'm not going to get to where I want to go with those customers. Now you know how much customer acquisition that you need to do. But the same thing applies to customer acquisition. When you go and see a customer, you're one of 3 or 5 or heaven knows how many other IT providers that have knocked on the door. To make that a good use of your time, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the person who was last there or the one that comes in after you for the next meeting? And again, the question is, the customer's going to do business just as we do. We do business with people that we trust, with people that we like, with people that understand us, with people that we understand. And so we've got to build that trust relationship by talking their business, unpacking what they want, uncovering the needs and saying, I can show you how we can help you to do that, and map your solutions to their requirements.
I think to that point, the acquisition piece that you need to be aware of is that everything needs to be done in balance. It's critical. The marketing journey that you start today bears fruit in about 18 months. So you need to be having a initial conversation out into the market and putting something out into the market fairly consistently. I love it and hate it, but every damn week I get an email from this man with the background just telling me something about the market and the industry, because he's consistent and he writes something and he's in my inbox every single week. And so from that side of the fence, he's present, he's there. And if I want to go and look for something, I know it's there. But then you need to have some sort of engine, some sort of engagement, some sort of event, some sort of whatever. And that all builds up in parallel. That takes time and effort. And that requires investment as well as the investment in your existing backyard. You need to be talking to your customers and asking for referrals often, not just once. One MSP in Sydney was incredibly successful by literally having the 8 people in the business, 4 of whom were directors, banging out phone calls to their entire list going, have you got any referrals for me this month? And they did it monthly, to the point where every single person knew the phone call was coming and started preparing a referral so that they could get them off their back. But it was also so that they then grew out to being a giant MSP as a result of it. But it's engagement that gets you there. It's consistent engagement that gets you there faster.
I think that's the word consistency is. I certainly put a lot of weight on it, and it comes from Fuzzy. I remember when I was sponsoring an industry event, and he said, "You know what most vendors do wrong is they sponsor something and they don't show up." You know, that consistency of actually being part of it and actually being in front of mind is important. And I think that goes both for the acquisition and the customer retention perspective. But to summarize the response that I'm taking away, and if I get it wrong, please feel free to throw something at me. But start with your top 5 initial customers. Focus on that over new customer acquisition, and then once you get it right, make sure you balance it. Is that kind of what you're saying, to summarize?
You'll still have to scale up your service desks and other things in parallel. So you've still got to make
conversation.
It is a different conversation, but that's where the balancing act comes into it. You will find
it's
more
business. We're juggling more than 3 balls though.
if you're the owner, I'll guarantee you have not had the time to go wide on your clients, let alone deep. You will have sold an initial service probably, and that's where you've gone, cool, the service desk can handle the rest. But all the other stuff that you've got, and hosted network's a perfect example of a parallel service that you could offer to those clients, you haven't had the time. And so the ability to dig into that and engage with that on a consistent basis means you get the parallel recurring revenue services, which means you can then afford to go and hire more service people. I will segue it a little bit and just bring it back with the new business piece. There's 2 sayings that I've heard that I really like. And one is, sales job is not to have mercy on operations, it's to bury them. And the second one is, the sales car has 1 pedal. It's the skinny one on the right-hand side. And that's it. So there's always got to be go. You cannot stop, because if you stop, you lose momentum and you lose everything else on the way. But all of the sales activity needs to fund the rest of the business growth, and you have to be doing it all at the same time, and you cannot do that alone.
Well, to back up Aaron's point, I don't think there's too many MSPs. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the service desk, because it's a problem. And if you're so busy winning new clients that you can't service them, you'll lose some at the bottom. You'll know where to prioritize your efforts to. But ultimately, sales is a team game.
Yes.
And you can't hold it all in your head. You've got to understand your customer. If you want to do a really great job and win trust and win referrals, you've got to understand your customer, and not just you, but all of the people that engage with that client. It's a team effort. And the opportunity is to have a platform that allows you to unpack the customer's needs, to share that with your colleagues, and to go deep on a client. If you haven't got enough folk to do that, you'll soon find that your client base shapes up for it. But all MSPs want to grow. All MSPs want to be liked by their customers, trusted by their customers, to build a new market. The way to do that is to understand them and talk to them in their language. If they use the wrong words for stuff, that's fine. Use their words. Talk about their people. Talk about the impact on their business. Talk about how you're helping your customer to do a better job. If you do that, you'll be fine.
I'll give you one real world example. I worked with a customer for 18 months. They were doing, call it whatever value per month of revenue they were doing. I think it was about $250,000 a month in revenue, and in recurring revenue only. We got rid of 25 non-fit customers, but increased the recurring revenue by $100,000 in an 18-month period. So by the time I finished working with them, they were billing $350,000 a month, and deliberately exited 25 of their key customers, and they were the wrong fit customers. That's all by engagement. Now, we use Get Cambium to go and shake that tree, but engagement and consistent engagement and making sure that we had the right pricing, packaging, billing, all of those things all together meant that the revenues went up while the customer load and the service load went down.
Guys, we are nearly at time today. I would like if you could each give us some final tips for our audience today. So, one or two, what do you think are the key tactics that you believe an MSP should be doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure customer retention? Mr. Page, we'll start with you.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, look, I think, as I said at the start, really focus on the relationships. I think building relationships is the most important thing in any business. So that's probably number one, is get out there and really get to know your customers, build those relationships with the individuals that you have access to within the business. I think in terms of a second point, I suppose consistency is a really key word. I think we've heard that a couple of times. I really like how you characterize it, Aaron. You can't take your foot off the gas. You've really got to keep building those consistent communication pipelines, consistent pathways. And again, it all comes back down to that building a relationship. If you're there in the inbox, you're building a relationship in one way or another. If you catching up with them regularly on the phone, it's all about that relationship building. So I think consistency, 100%, consistency, multiple touch points, build relationships, get out there and get to know your customers.
Beautiful. Mr. Hunt, your final takeaways that you'd like to impart?
Simple, easy as build trust. Consistently build trust. And as MSPs, we like tools and platforms. So grab a tool, do it repeatedly, every day, build trust, understand your customers, develop the relationship.
Mr. Smith, final words on customer retention. What do you think are the two key things in your opinion?
I'd probably give you a what do you do next sort of thing in answer to that
sure.
question.
Yep.
One, go and ask your customer two questions. The first question is, what do you like about doing business with us? And the second question is, what makes it difficult to do business with us? And then shut up and listen. And the second one is, do not underestimate the value of working from your customers' sites. Grab a desk, sit amongst them, be present, I'm in the area. I wasn't, but I will be. I wasn't, and I will be on your office, and I'll work there. While we have our meeting, I'll hang around for the half day. I'll take a desk if that's okay. Seek permission, but do not underestimate the value of being present in their office for longer than you need to and being present. And that goes at all levels of the team, but they're sales, technical, owners, or otherwise. That is engagement.
That's great. And, face to face is always king, right? So yeah, and like Andrew, Mr. Page said earlier, that having relationships at each of those different layers, whether it be your text or whatnot, is very, very important. Well, guys, that is all the time we have today. I'd like to thank each of you and our audience. I'll just pop up the screen. We do have our next MSPs in conversation coming up. Hopefully you can all see that. So we are talking empowering your team, developing great leaders for your MSP. How does the business owner step back a little bit and let other people shine? We've got some great panelists. We've got James Burgle, Paul from Mangano IT, and Zorn from Leap Consulting. So that is happening on the 9th of October. And we actually have a dedicated website for MSPs in conversation now. So you don't have to go to the hosted network. We're kind of splitting it off a little bit into its own little thing. So check that out. If you see any bugs, let us know. But as always, thank you for joining us today. To our panelists, Andrew, and Aaron, or the AAAs, I appreciate your time and thank you for your insights. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.